Hi everyone, this is Lou the Shoe. I'm over here with Heath from Fairway, and just wanted to talk about this Mass Dreams program. We're seeing a whole lot of posts, a whole lot of information kind of coming at us about this Mass Dream program that was just recently rolled out. I don't know exactly what the date was. Heath, you know about that?
Yes, Tuesday. It was
Tuesday.
rolled out Tuesday to a very select few lenders that
Hmm.
actually participate through the requirement of units that mass housing requires. So there's approximately 50 some odd lenders only.
Okay.
I'll start by just giving a quick bio of my term in the industry.
Oh,
I've been
yes.
in the industry for 27 years. I have done numerous give backs and services into the industry through my career, holding various hats from Fleet Boston Financial to as an executive to managing and coaching internal operational staff along with loan officers in the business. I've held an underwriting hat in my career as well, which is my benefit statement into the community as far as my underwriting expertise. And one of my greatest passions in this industry is educating and inspiring folks that service the housing market.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. And Heath has
You're
a
welcome.
whole lot of knowledge, and obviously with his underwriting capabilities, he does a lot more than a lot of other mortgage lenders that I have dealt with in the past. And he's helped me out a few times, especially recently too. So if you do need a good lender, then Heath will be able to help you out. Um, so Heath, yeah, can you explain to us just what is this Mass Dreams $50,000 grant? Can you just give us like a quick rundown of
Sure.
what it is?
Sure. So the Mass Dream program is a branded name that Mass Housing has chose, and Mass Dreams is really a federal funding for the American Rescue Plan of 2021, which provides assistance to states to mitigate the economic effects of the pandemic. The Mass Dreams and Mass program that provides down payment and closing cost grants to first-time homebuyers who actually meet eligibility criteria and who currently live in one of the designated 29 communities that were disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. So there's roughly 29 communities that have been affected. And there is a guideline where you have to currently live in one of those 29 communities, and only one applicant would have to live in one of those designated communities, Lou.
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? What do they consider living in that community? Is it like, I just rented an apartment for a week or so, and that now all of a sudden I can buy this house and have $50,000 in my pocket?
Yes, there is no term when it comes to the guideline of having to live in that community. If we look across some examples, like one community is labeled Boston. So Boston obviously makes up a lot as you look up various towns within Boston.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I put in the description all the cities that it does cover too.
Mhm.
And that way people can kind of see and understand whether or not if this affects it. And this is, like you said, this is still new. So maybe within the next year or so, they realize that they need more of this to different cities or something. So um, I think there might even be an opportunity for this program to expand, um, if available.
Yes, and what I'm hearing is there could be some additional funds outside of the Dreams program that would participate, to your point, Lou.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So, all right. So now we got into like the towns and stuff. So now who does this affect? Is this just everybody that lives in this town is able to get this $50,000 grant, or like who does this specifically affect and target?
Sure. The program was administrated towards the folks that currently live in one of those 29 communities. So the eligibility criteria would be that one of the two applicants would actually have to live in one of these communities to
Mm-hmm.
actually fulfill the first guideline that Mass Housing or Mass Streams has administrated. So you would actually have to live there. So, for example, if a party is, I guess, about to get married or live together, one of the applicants out of the two would actually have to live in one of the participating 29 communities to be eligible initially.
So just so I understand this correctly. So say someone lives in North Attleboro and then someone lives in Boston, because of the fact that they, one of them lives in Boston, they can then move to Boston and then utilize this grant opportunity.
Correct.
Okay. So now I understand that. Is there like an income restriction or income requirement?
Yes, there's actually two requirements. We'll talk first about the income requirement. For applicants to receive the full 50,000, the homeowner would have to earn 100% of the area median income, which we use as an acronym AMI, which basically stands for, again, area median income. And within that area median income, every applicant can look up through Google, or at least put in the Google chat that, AMI lookup tool, and the lookup tool will come up for applicants. In fact, Lou and I will assist in that, but there is a lookup tool, and for applicants to be eligible, once again, for the full 50, they would have to be earning up to 100% of the area median income to be eligible for that 50.
Okay.
And they went a step further. Applicants can still earn up to 35,000 if they earned over that 100%, up to 135% of the area median income. So those are the income guidelines relative to the grant availability.
Okay, so AMI lookup tool. So if I Google AMI lookup tool, I would be able to see what the I'm sorry, you said area median income.
Income.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I'd be able to see what the area median income is for that specific city or area or whatever, and then I can see if I make those. If I'm below it, then I make the requirement up to that 50,000 mark. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay. So as far as you mentioned, also 35,000 of 135% of the area median income. So if I make a little bit more, what you're saying of the say the 100% median income is 75,000, right? So it if I make say 80,000 or 90,000, it's a little bit above that. So I might not be able to get that full 50,000, but I could still get up to 35,000 is what you're saying.
Yes, correct.
Wow. Okay, cool. That's
Yeah, and this is a good example of how many folks would be eligible for the 50. Like, for example, if we look at the area median income in Berkshire County, which tends to be a lot lower than Essex County, Berkshire County's median income is $117,855. And just to give folks a sense of somewhat of the minimum area median income, Berkshire County tends to be on the lower end. Essex County goes up to $179,955.
wow.
So that's a good example of how many folks would fulfill that income requirement.
Wow. So now with that being said, is this the household income? Is this everybody that's going to be living in the house, or is this just the borrowers?
Yeah. Yes. And Mass Housing uses a term called compliance income, which we won't get into today because it can be somewhat complex
Okay.
For everyone to understand. But it would mean the household income and the compliance income guidelines of Mass Housing.
Okay. So if it's going to be me, if I have a wife, it's my wife, and say there's a kid that we live with as well that also produces income, it's going to be all three of us combined what our income is generating, and we're going to compare that to the AMI, the area median income.
Yes, we'll combine. Okay. And some examples of compliance income, Lou, for folks would be, obviously bonus, overtime, dividends reflected over a 2-year average on a tax return, Social Security benefits, rental income on the subject property would also count towards the overall income. Unemployment compensation is also used if it's common in the industry, such as construction, folks who get laid off. But that would be some examples of compliance income.
Awesome. Now, one thing that I did want to ask, I know that there were a lot of funds available. I think that you mentioned there was $65 million in funds available. Now, how are they utilizing this entire $50,000 amount? Is it
okay? That's a very important question.
Yes.
So to answer that, Mass Housing wants to make sure that these funds are readily available for the folks that are actually tied into an executed contract.
Okay.
It's very, very important. Mass Housing wants to make sure that these funds are reserved for live transactions. So, for example, you can't have someone requesting these funds without a property address. And those funds will not be reserved for folks that have a 2BD address. These funds are reserved strictly for folks that are actually tied to a property address and an executed contract. So the offer to purchase a transaction would qualify for those funds to be reserved and approved. Now, there's additional guidance coming through Mass Housing as they perform educational series to the lenders that are approved. But the understanding that everyone has is the offer to purchase would qualify for the eligibility. In fact, Mass Housing has put a 5-day guideline into that where they actually have to submit the offer to purchase along with some other information, which I don't have on today's call, but as we continue to do these series, Lou, we'll certainly have that information for you.
Okay, so and how do they apply for this? Do they just go onto the MassGov website, or is this something that somebody does for them? Or
yes, they can do it on their own, but I think what consumers will find is that they will probably lean on the lender to do that. But the link, the potential home buyer must be pre-qualified for assistance through www.mymasshome.org.
Okay.
I'll try to put this.
Yeah, no big deal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put all this stuff in the description, so that way all they have to do is just look at the description and see it as well. So I'll be sure to put all 29 cities in the description, as well as AMI lookup, and as far as the website that you just mentioned as well too. So that way people can literally just click on the website and go from there too. So now, in terms of where does the money go to, as far as the transaction goes, like, is this for the down payment? Is this for just like, here you go, here's 50 grand and do whatever you want with it? What does this look like in terms of how do they spend it?
Sure. These funds are reserved internally through Mass Housing until the transaction's actually submitted by the lender.
Mm-hmm.
So mass housing does have a guideline, and that is if you're eligible for the 50,000 and we're dealing with a purchase price of 300,
Mm-hmm.
there is a guideline where that 50,000, the max down payment amount that can be used would be 5% of that purchase price. So in this case, a $300,000 purchase price, that 5% guideline in this example would mean 15,000.
Okay.
So 15,000 would be the max out of the 50 that can be used for the down payment. And then the remaining amount can be used towards closing costs, prepaid items, which would include the escrow for the taxes and the insurance, and even the upfront homeowner's policy can be used also. So it's very specific. So again, the guideline states 5% of the purchase price would be the max down payment amount out of the 50 that can be used for the down payment. But the remaining amount can be brought towards closing costs, prepaid items, again, escrow account, homeowners, and even maybe a very small percentage of the discount cost for the consumer to receive a lower interest rate by buying it down. However, the high cost guidelines that we have to adhere to in the industry
Mm-hmm.
would limit the amount of the discount to drive down that interest rate.
Okay. So in other words, even if, say, you have a lower purchase price, because obviously, there's a big difference between someone buying a house in Springfield versus buying a house in Boston. Those two purchase prices are totally different. So if, say the purchase price in Boston is $600,000 versus in Springfield, say it's $230,000, I mean, your down payment is going to be obviously significantly less. So that's pretty cool that even though it's only 5% of that you're going to be able to use for a down payment, you could still use that for other types of escrows, insurance, and stuff like that as well.
Yes.
That's really cool. I like that. Or is there a way that they can utilize the entire 50,000, even though they only have a $300,000 purchase price?
Yeah, they're not going to be able to utilize the full 50. It has to be specific to the individual transaction. So if we're talking a $300,000 loan, then obviously the cost related to that loan would be anywhere from $7,000 to $8,000. If there's a discount that's driving down the rate, perhaps it could extend to like $9,000 between closing costs, attorneys, prepaid items, which would include, again, the escrow, the upfront homeowner's insurance to secure the insurance on the property prior to disbursement. That would be inclusive.
Okay.
But outside of that, in that example, we're probably talking between the down payment guideline of 5%, which in this case is $15,000, and a max of maybe 9, call it 10. Then you're talking a max amount of like 25,000.
Okay.
So they won't have use of the remaining funds, which in this example would be 25,000. That would stay in the dream fund for the next eligible homeowner.
Okay, I gotcha. So that's pretty cool, though, the fact that they can get into a house essentially for free because they're not putting anything down, they're not paying any closing costs, and maybe that'll give the seller a little bit more insight to kind of lower the price of the home too, because of the fact that they don't have to negotiate closing costs. Where some buyers, they need those closing costs covered in order to purchase the house because they don't want to put that money down and just kind of pay for the closing costs. So that's still pretty good.
It is. And in fact, this is one federal fund account that mass housing has available. However, there are other grant programs within mass housing that can be combined with these federal funds. So I want everyone to understand that even though there's a restriction on the dream funds, they very well could be eligible for the additional funds that Mass Housing offers today.
Wow.
Um, and we can talk about that in the next series, but it's important for folks to understand that it can be combined with the existing grant funds available through Mass Housing.
Wow. So can you just tell us, like, maybe where do we find this list of these other funds that are available, or these other programs that are available within Mass Housing?
Sure. One of them is the Workforce Advantage Program, WFA, Mass Housing Grant. If folks were to Google that, it would come right up.
Okay.
But there's stiff income requirements within that as well. There's somewhat of a low income threshold based on the number of folks that actually live in the property. So as more people live in that property, that income threshold goes up within that first WFA, Workforce Advantage Program within Mass Housing. And those funds can be as great as like 50,000 additional funds.
Wow.
And that really supports the lower income thresholds within various areas.
Wow. Okay, cool. And so some of these, even though they have, like, say, lower income requirements, being that you can utilize this and this Mass Housing, this Mass Dreams program, you can kind of combine them together. So say you only have, in our previous example with a $300,000 purchase price, say you can only utilize $25,000 out of the $50,000, there might be additional income or additional funds that you can get from these Mass Housing programs, and you could put it back into, towards the down payment and stuff like that. Is that correct?
That is correct. So
wow.
Yes, it can be combined with all the grant monies that currently exist within Mass Housing. And again, we failed to mention before, and I apologize, but you do have to be a first-time home buyer to be eligible for
right.
the Dream program. And the definition of a first-time home buyer is anyone that has not owned in the last 3 years.
3 years. Okay. All right. So if, say, I bought a house 5 years ago, sold it, after a year, or I moved or whatever, that person is still technically eligible.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Heath. Thank you for your time. And last thing is, how do people get a hold of you?
Sure.
I'm going to put your phone number and your email address below, but if you want to just reiterate your email address maybe, or what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. So my contact information, my direct phone number, and just keep in mind that I am available 24/7 for folks. So I can be reached 7 days a week at any time during the day, which some folks think a little crazy in doing that, but I don't find that to be the case. I am a public servant in the mortgage industry, and I'm proud to state that. So my phone number is 401-641-0344. My direct work email is my first name, Heath, like the candy bar. The Mars Company, owned by Warren Buffett, believe it or not. But so it's Heath.Lefort, Lefort, at fairwaymc.com. And you can reach me those two ways. I'm very present on Google, so if folks were to Google my name, all my contact information will come up, and folks can get acquainted with me through my website as well and other social media outlets. So awesome. I appreciate you allowing me to do that for your network there, Lou.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're all about, just trying to give people value. And obviously there was a ton of people that were asking me questions about this to where I didn't know the answers of. And I really just thought that it'd be best if we just shared this information with everybody. That way, it'd be a lot easier. They can look at this information, see if they're open to the grant program and see if they qualify for it. And then we can kind of go from there. But thank you very much for everything, Heath. I appreciate you spending your Saturday with us. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Heath, and we'll be able to help you out. All right. Thank you.
My pleasure, Lou. My pleasure. Enjoy your weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, Lou.